know what really makes us mad? Is wasting money on CDs with only one or two good songs.
Yeah. Tell them about punk.
What's up, posers? Welcome to Punk Lotto Pod. I'm your co-host, Justin Hensley.
I'm your other co-host, Dylan Hensley. It's probably not going to come through because I think the gap there was quite enough that it will get cut out. But that was a very delayed response because I have a head cold and I think the Sudafed is making me brain foggy.
What was that commercial series in the 90s where they had giant noses for heads? You remember those? Were those Sudafed?
Maybe? I feel like there was a Sudafed commercial where they had like inflatable balloon heads. Like
Yeah.
There was like a cartoon.
Yeah, I kind of remember that too. Yeah. Or I guess the ones with the giant noses could have also been like something you like sniff to clear your nasal passage. Can't remember.
Well, oh, giant nose face ad. What is it for? It was a nasal spray. Yeah.
Just a nasal. Okay. Like Afrin or something like that.
Yeah, so his head's a big nose. He's got glasses on.
Yeah. Commercials used to be fun.
Yeah. Now they're awful. Everyone's mean, or they're just like generic.
A lot of songs. A lot of songs about Jardiance being really swell. I should know. I watch TV for a living.
Yeah.
So I see. Ozempic.
Yeah. Bad singing. Have you seen the Zach Braff and the other guy from Scrubs?
What's it for? I've seen them.
Yeah. And Jason Momoa.
Yeah, I have seen those. Yeah, it's like for cable, isn't it, or something like that, or T-Mobile or something like that.
Yeah, it's a communications thing with horrible auto tuning. Just like every single syllable is auto tuned. I'm like, didn't the guys from Scrubs like sing all the time?
They're kind of flat too.
Like musical episodes all the time. That was like a thing that they did.
Yeah. Well, that's not why you called. That's not what this podcast is about. This is the show where we choose one year at random and select one punk, hardcore, emo, or punk adjacent album from that year to discuss. And if you want to hear more fun tangents, head over to the Patreon at patreon.com/punklautopod. For $1, you get access to all of our weekly bonus audio. Last week, we just did an I'm Listening, where we talk about the music we listened to over the last month or so, and all sorts of different other pieces of audio out there. I keep threatening to start recording my Joan Jett Challengeography series. My notes are done for episode 1. I just have not been able to be like, all right, I need to sit down and record this. I've had like too much other stuff going on to get it done, but it's ready to go and be recorded. I just it's been a minute. But and it might be pretty long because I had a lot of notes for the first 3 albums because that's how I'm doing that series. But anyway, that'll be up, I hope, soon. I hope by the time you hear this, I have recorded it and posted it. So be on the lookout for that. You can also sign up at our $10 tier, and you get to choose what album we devote an entire episode to. We have 2 of those coming up in the next couple weeks, so be on the lookout for those. We actually have some fun stuff lined up. We have a guest next week, and then we're going to do a birthday spanking after that, and then I think we're going to do maybe those 2 Patreon sponsored episodes right after that. So we got a good couple weeks lined up for us. So exciting things happening here at Punk Lotto Pod Incorporated.
I am so looking forward to the birthday spanking. I'm just like, I can't wait to see what it's going to be.
I don't even know what it's going to be yet either. Like we decided that we're going to choose it based on whatever like year we wind up doing. So we'll see. We don't know what it's going to be yet. I'm hoping the 2000s, because the 2000s, then we have a lot more options as far as punishing choices. But yeah, some fun stuff coming up here. So this week but I was assigned the year 2008. It's funny because like you don't assign them for me. I assign them based on rotation of years that we've covered at this point. So really the algorithm, it's an algorithmically determined year, I think, at this point.
Yeah.
So it was time to do 2008, and we are still on a kick of doing the popular album, which we've learned has actually kind of paid off as far as, at least for one episode so far. has paid off for increasing our first week of listens for a very popular record. So I'm hoping this will continue that. We did it first with My War by Black Flag. We followed that up with Frame and Canvas by Braid, which is yet to be determined if that episode has been successful because it's only been up for one day as of this recording. And now we're doing a different record that's pretty big. And we'll save that till we get there. So 2008, since we've decided to do this approach, the amount of time spent on trying to choose an album has been a lot shorter, which also means like a lot less options for
a lot less consideration.
Right. And so like I didn't really dig too deep in 2008 before I landed on this record, and kind of felt like it's pretty obvious. That's an obvious choice, right? Like that's the one to do. So I guess if we were to look a little harder, say if we were like not that one, what else could we have done?
If we were looking for things that are popular,
yeah, let's stick with that motif for a moment.
That first Foals record is a pretty big deal. It was very popular when it came out. That's a band that was pretty successful. Could be an interesting record to talk about. More in the context of the band overall.
Yeah.
And how basically nothing else was really as fun as that first Foals record.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually like that Foals record, and I don't think I've listened to any of the other ones. Though, aren't they like Taylor Swift attached now? Weren't they like playing with her? Or am I thinking Paramore? I don't know why I would be getting Paramore and Taylor Swift mixed up. They're very different levels.
I don't know. Foals were a British band.
Yeah.
Aren't you thinking of isn't it the guy from Fun who like produces all of the Taylor Swift records now?
No, that's not what I'm thinking of. I've heard that guy talk recently, actually.
Jack Antonoff.
Oh, wait, that guy was in Fun?
Yeah, he was the drummer in Fun.
Oh, I always thought you were talking about the other guy in Fun, the singer.
Singer? No, I don't know what he's doing.
He quit music, I think. He was just recently on an episode of the podcast Guys, a podcast about guys, which is just about different types of people, like guys who are obsessed with like one thing, like guitar guys and grilling guys, and it's a very fun show. But it was very funny to hear him on that show because like, oh, the fun guy, that's weird. But I did say potentially Somewhere at the Bottom of the River Between Vega and Altair by La Dispute. Yeah. I don't know if I've ever said that full album title before.
It's annoying.
Yeah.
Darling.
La Dispute, a band I never got into. I maybe listened to this record when it was new, but I don't think I followed it up with anything else they did.
Yeah. I tried to book them actually. And that didn't go anywhere. I don't know where they ended up playing. I remember calling Static Age in Asheville and trying to book there. And the guy was like, I've never heard of this band.
What?
I was like, what? How do you run a record store?
Was this been before the LP or after?
Oh, that record was out.
Weird.
Pretty sure.
It's like, do you not know what Run for Cover or whatever record label they were on?
Yeah. I sat and watched my wife get tattooed while the tattoo artist listened to this record like twice in a row because he couldn't get anything else to play on his phone, and I guess he just didn't want to sit in silence.
You're not in silence. You get that buzzing going on. I can see wanting music over that.
Yeah. When you listen to it all day long. Yeah. Very awkwardly, dude, like the shop wasn't even open. He like agreed to do the tattoo and like came in on like an off day to do the tattoo for her. It's weird. I don't know.
Fall Out Boy released Folie Adieu. Just for clarification for anyone listening to this show who does not know us, I will never select a Fall Out Boy record willingly. I don't think even as a birthday spanking I would give you a Fall Out Boy record, because then that means I would have to listen to it.
Oh, I might get. Oh, well, that's a birthday spanking idea.
Well, yeah, now you have an idea. I truly despise all Fall Out Boy sounds. The modern pop stuff combined with and the old pop punk stuff. I hate how they sound. Specifically, Patrick Stump or whatever his name is. Is that his name?
Yeah.
That's got to be a fake name. Patrick Stump? That's fake.
Jiminy Jillikers.
Yeah, just not a fan. Actually, what? Also known as Patrick Martin Stumpf, PH at the end.
Okay.
Also known as Patrick Von Stump and Pat Patterson. So I don't know where he went by these names. Intercontinental Champion Pat Patterson? Yeah, don't like Fall Out Boy. I don't like it. What song's on here?
Because that's after.
Is it?
That's late.
It's late.
It's the one. This is the one with like
Lil
Elvis
Wayne
Costello,
on
Lil Wayne
here.
features.
Debbie Harry?
Brandon Aries on here a couple times. But this is, well, what's the one? It's the comeback record where they have the Elton John,
Yeah.
Courtney
Yeah.
Love features.
Yeah. That maybe Save Rock and Roll. Yeah, because fully I do. That's like the last one before they took their hiatus. Would they break up? I don't remember how that worked, but
They broke up.
I think they did.
I think it was, yeah. Their comeback was talked about as like a comeback.
What's the joke? You can never have my Fall Out Boy and My Chemical Romance back together because it's like when one breaks up, the other reunites.
Well, I hope My Chemical Romance stays together then, because we don't need more Fall Out Boy.
We could have done some kind of Cadwallader by Algernon Cadwallader. Is that a reference to the Metallica documentary? Now that I'm thinking about it, I hope so. One of the not Midwest emo, one of the emo revival bands, the twinkly emo revival bands that were probably one of the bigger ones that I never really got into. I was never really hugely into them. They were fine. I listened to like their LPs and I thought they were fine, but I never was like, oh my God, they're the best one out of that. They're not. They were like nowhere near my favorite version of that kind of band.
No, I liked them. I did listen to them. I listened to that record. I listened to the record that came out after it too, I think. Yeah, The Parrot Flies.
Yeah.
They were
I
always
listened to
just
both of them, but
all right to me. They always felt like as close as you could get to American football and me still care.
you get too close to that sound and you stop caring.
Yeah.
Tiger's Jaw self-titled record. That would have been a good one to cover. We have covered a Tiger's Jaw record in the past, more recently than the album we're covering today. Today's a repeat artist too, but
Yeah. Yeah, Tiger's Jaw, if we're going by popularity by records that I would want to talk about or feel like I could have a lot to talk about, that Tiger's Jaw record is probably what I would pick, other than the record we are talking about.
I was actually strongly considering Appeal to Reason by Rise Against, because this is that yellow Rise Against record, which is like the biggest one.
I don't think it is. I thought Siren Song was the bigger one, but actually the one in between has more ratings than either.
Yeah, okay.
So
The Sufferer and the Witness.
is that the Rock Band Guitar Hero one then?
Maybe. I don't know when they became a radio rock band, but it's in this time period.
Because they have a song in the Guitar Hero game, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
The Guitar Hero.fandom wiki. Yeah. Will confirm this for me. It was Prayer of the Refugee. It was on. Yeah, it was on The Sufferer and The Witness. Rise Against, members of 88 Fingers Louie.
Yeah, I was going to say they came a long way from 88 Fingers Louie.
It makes sense, though. When you think about who it is from 88 Fingers, it's like Joe, right? Bass.
Bass, yeah.
And Dan Precision.
He's on like the first record, and that's it,
Yeah.
I think. If it was your birthday, I would have considered Scream, Aim, Fire by Bullet for My Valentine. I feel like that
hell
might
yeah.
have been a punishing record.
That could have been a funny one to do.
That's the record that... What label was that? Was that Eulogy? Eulogy? Not Eulogy. What was the name of the record? With the record label with the... Anyway, they sold the whole fucking record label to Sony just for that one album. Because that's all Sony wanted was Bullet for My Valentine. And they got the entire catalog. And then they started like Bullet Tooth or something like that. I think that...
Bullet Tooth was Ferret. Was the Post Ferret label, wasn't it?
I thought Bullet Tooth was the post this one. What?
Because they were on 2020 and Gun. No, 2020 is that was a label that had like Apocalyptica.
Trust Kill was the label I was... No, Trust Kill. Yeah, Trust Kill. He sold the Trustkill catalog. I think he sold the whole label to Sony because he had them, and they're now Bullet Tooth. Ferret is something else. Ferret did the exact same thing that Trustkill did.
Yeah. I don't think Bullet for My Valentine was on Trustkill.
They were. I literally just looked it up on their Wikipedia page.
Oh, there. First record was Trustkill. Yeah. Okay.
Ferret. Is Ferret still active? No, they defunct in 2010.
Yeah.
Good Fight. Good Fight is the new Ferret.
That's the post Ferret, right?
They did the exact same thing as each other. They were like, here you go. Well, Tooth and Nail did the same thing, but they kept their name at least.
Yeah.
I think because I think it was a case of like they got money from Sony to help like buy a van for Bullet for My Valentine, but the label was put up as collateral or something like that. It was a really weird situation because they were already trying to, maybe they were being distributed through Sony. I think that's how that happened, and they got the money. Yeah, that way. Don't make deals with majors, folks. I did also consider Have Heart's Songs to Scream at the Sun. That feels like a pretty big record that probably would have been a good one to cover as well. I don't think I've ever heard a single Have Heart song in my entire life.
I've heard that record.
I don't think I have.
Probably like in 2008, 2009, and then that was literally it.
If it was up to you, what would you choose? Like, say we weren't doing just a popular record. What would you think? What would you choose to talk about?
It's kind of not a great year. Weirdly.
I think 08 is better for... This is emo revival's beginnings, so I think a lot of like the emo revival, the orgcore, fest punk stuff is probably the best stuff from this time period.
I think that that United Nations record could be an interesting one to revisit because I really liked it then, and there's definitely plenty to talk about with it being, a super group and members of a bunch of other bands. Cursed 3, we've yet to do a Cursed record. 3 could be a really good one to do. You could pick any Cursed record, but I guess it just makes the most sense to pick either 1 or 3.
Yeah, beginning or end, yeah.
Heavier Than Heaven, Lonelier Than God by Blacklisted came out.
That's a good one. I like that record a lot.
It's a really good record. I wonder how much I would have to talk about with that record, though. I don't know. It's such a funny time period to me.
It is a weird little like
how in between it actually is.
It's a very in between, yeah. Bridging year. We're stepping out of the Warped Tour, Hot Topic, mainstreamish punk stuff, punk and emo. We still some metalcore, but it's also on its, stepping out a little bit too. So like the old world is now shifting into the more independent DIY sounding punk and hardcore. The Death Wish Records sound is very congealed at this point. It's a thing now. Yeah, it's an interesting time period.
I'll end with this one. I Get Better by Lemuria. That would be a good record to talk about.
Yeah, it'd be a really good one.
There would be plenty to say with that record. Even though we've talked about Lemuria before, I think there'd still be plenty to say. Which we did a single, didn't we? Did we do Pebble?
We did. No, we did.
We just did that single.
I think, we did the single.
Chautauqua County. Yeah.
Previously, we have covered at episode 224 Alkaline Trios, Agony and Irony, as well as at episode 171 The Measures, Songs About People and Fruit and Shit. We did that with good friend Corey. Episode 130, we did The Silver Mount Zion Band ... 13 Blues for 13 Moons with Closer. And episode 56, This Bike is a Pipe Bombs Convertible, along with Seosin's The Gray with Sarah from All Right.
Weird pairing.
And then episode 26, Bridge and Tunnels, East West, along with Natives, We Delete Erase. So we've hit 08 a couple times, hitting a variety of different sounds, to be honest. So I was assigned the year 2008, and I selected the 59 sound by the Gaslight Anthem.
And they burned up the diner I always used to find her.
on the band. They formed in 2006 in New Brunswick, New Jersey. This was released August 19th, 2008 on Side One Dummy Records. And this is the band's second full-length album. The personnel on this record is Alex Levine on bass, Benny Horowitz on drums, Alex Rosamilia on guitar, and Brian Fallon on guitar and vocals. And the album was produced by Ted Hutt. We also feature some backing vocals from Chris Wallard, Dickie Barrett, Joe Soroy, Joe Sib, and Kim Yarborough, who was on the second season of The Voice. And Ted Hutt was in Flogging Molly and had already produced Drunken Lullabies and Within a Mile of Home. He also did Go Betty Go's Worst Enemy, The Bouncing Souls Gold Record, and Chuck Reagan's Feast or Famine. So already becoming somewhat of a Side One Dummy producer.
Yeah. He would go on to do 1372 Everton Park by Lucero. He did a Fake Problems record. He did that Horrible Crows record. He did Women at Work too with Lucero.
Yeah.
He did like an Old Crow Medicine Show record. Actually, he's done quite a few Lucero records.
Yeah, he did All a Man Could Do, whatever that one's called.
And he did Brian's Sleepwalkers solo record.
Yeah, and kept working with Flogging Molly too, I think. So, what made you choose this album, Dylan?
I don't know, Justin. What made you choose this album?
Yes, I am the one who selected this record, not the big gas head of the podcast.
Yeah, it was funny that you picked it. It was almost like, hey, hands off. It's my band.
It's weird. Like, I was going through that list, and it was purely just, that's a big record. We should probably do that record. It's been a while since we did the Gaslight Anthem, I didn't actually go back and look to see how far back we went with them.
That was pretty far back. That was
episode 5. We covered Sink or Swim. Yeah.
Wow.
I didn't listen to it because why
it's
would
probably
you?
Bad.
Anytime I've ever gone back and listened to really early ones, I'm like, why is our energy so low? We're not enunciating. What is going on here? But I guess I was kind of curious to look at it just to see like what we repeat. Maybe I'll listen to it after we record this and be like, oh, we just said the same shit over again, but with better enunciation this time. Yeah, I don't know. I just saw it on the list. I was like, that's a big record. We should do that. It's been a long time since we covered it. It's probably the biggest record that we could have covered that our audience would have really connected with too. Because like, yeah, there's technically more popular albums on this year, but I don't know. It didn't feel right for our audience for what some of those picks were. Yeah, so I was just sheer cynicism is why I selected this record.
It's right in your Q zone.
No, I mean, it's one of those records that has kind of stood the test of time as like kind of a classic record. So
it's a cultural touchstone, I think, for punk. We've talked about who are the current legacy acts, who are the newest legacy acts in punk, and it was kind of like Against Me, Gaslight Anthem kind of fits in there. The youngest, punk bands that could very easily just coast on their hits.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of bands like we're not thinking of that have had albums that have been out for like 10 years now that they're doing like album tours in support of, playing that album in its entirety type stuff. I'm sure if we looked at
everybody's doing those too much now.
Yeah. The trend has lasted a lot longer than I thought that trend would last. Because I feel like a decade ago we were seeing that kind of stuff. Like for the first time. And even then I was like, this is a cool thing that's happening at the time, but
I don't know that we need to do this for everybody, especially when you go see some of them and you're like, this was kind of disappointing.
Yeah, I think, do we blame Coheed and Cambria? Because I feel like they started this shit with their like Never Enders, where they would do that. They would do like the whole record front to back.
I don't know if people do things because Coheed and Cambria do them. Coheed and Cambria is a jam band.
They have that kind of audience.
Yeah. It's self-sustaining.
Yeah.
I feel like they fit in they're not technically a jam band, but they fit the same kind of audience.
They sell out around here all the time. Whenever they come through, they sell out all the time. So yeah, they just have like their own audience and it's theirs and theirs alone. Like they're not fighting for like people. Like, I don't know.
You can probably slurp a balloon in the Coheed and Cambria parking lot. Well, you
I don't
definitely
know.
could on the last tour because it was with
with Primus.
Primus. Yeah.
That tour hasn't even. I don't think it's even started yet.
That hasn't even happened
That's
yet.
one of those tours, or they started just now. Fishbone was supposed to be on that tour too, and they fell off because Fishbone is fighting again. They had the original lineup back, and now everybody's gone, but like 2 of them again. So now they're fighting over that, and they had to like drop off some festival too because they had to drop off the tour. They didn't want to, but it seemed like the bookers wanted them to. The bookers wanted Fishbone to drop.
Because
I think
it's insurance liability.
I don't know if it's that or if it's just we don't know what the band is going to be because like everybody but 2 of them left. So like they don't have a band right now. It's just 2 of them. So I mean I'm sure they would just go back to who they used previously before the reunion. But yeah, so that was the one I was strongly considering going to because it was like Coheed and Fishbone. But then Primus was the thing where I was like, I don't know if I want to go see that. And then I found I was outside here in Charlotte, and I was like, no, thanks, I'm not going.
Yeah, but I think from an anthropological perspective, it'd be interesting to see a Primus audience.
I'd watch like 3 songs and then be like, I'm good.
Yeah.
Have I heard? Maybe I'll wait till Jerry's a race car driver, and then or my name is Mud, and then leave.
How far into the set do they bury those?
Probably pretty far, honestly. Either that, or I could see them being the kind of band that like puts the hit up front so they can just shed those people. They could be like that. But there, we played the hit. Now leave if you're ready, if you want to go. I don't know how we got here. Oh yeah, we're talking about the albums. Yeah. Everybody does it now. It seems like a festival thing now, mainly. But yeah. So yeah, choosing this album.
You were just in it for the bucks.
Our invisible dollars that we get as a result of these episodes. Yeah,
our first week downloads were up.
Hey, you
gotta
do
give
something.
me the full stat rundown for like, here's the top 10. Which can be interesting because sometimes there would be something that's up there really high and I'm like, that's weird. Or something will sneak into something will finally get enough downloads.
Yeah.
In the total, if you go with the overalls.
I had looked. There's some new stuff in there. That Bad Religion's No Control episode is now in our top 10. It wasn't.
Oh, wow.
It's like number 7 now too. It bumped up a couple spots. So yeah, I was actually talking with our good buddy, the Madball Mystery Caller, and he was saying like you should do more brackets. And I was like, I know, we put it behind the paywall on the Patreon, and they actually were some of our most popular episodes in the main feed. So like anytime we cover like multiple artists at once, they tend to perform really well. But weird, like that requires a lot more work, especially if we're doing main feed show stuff.
Yeah, that's a lot of prep and a lot of time just spent recording.
Yeah. So yeah, if I really wanted us to like boost some numbers, I would just be like, we're doing brackets, we're doing top 10s of years, we're doing best worst over unders, we're doing all the gimmicks where we cover lots of stuff at one time.
We're doing the Apple best albums of all times list.
I haven't even looked at that list, but
I keep seeing the joke ones that people post. So the record that we're actually talking about here, because we need to get going here. Looking at the clock, I think we should have enough time. But yeah, so you picked it purely for numbers reasons, and I would have picked it because I love it.
Yeah, like I said this before we recorded, but I was like, Dylan picked this record, right? I was like, no, wait, I picked this record to talk about. And I guess we go through a little bit of our back history with Gaslight. First song I ever heard was I'd Have Called You Woody Joe, which is off of Sink or Swim, but it was on a Rock Sound magazine CD sampler. You see, kids, back in the day, magazines used to come with CDs glued to the front of the magazine. And you could just like take that CD out of it. There was no plastic wrap on that. It was weird how they did those. Even like what was it, Uncut or Mojo, when they would put theirs on there, they would put it in a jewel case, but you could still just open the jewel case. And like the Rock Sound ones were just in a cardboard sleeve, so you could just pull that disc right out if you wanted. It's a very weird, inefficient way of doing it, where they probably were like, half of the CDs have been stolen. But yeah, Rock Sound magazine, British magazine, kind of like the British AP magazine, alt press. And yeah, I heard that song there, and then not long after this record came out, or maybe even another Gaslight Anthem song showed up on another sampler too from this album. So my guess is that Sink or Swim track got put on there as like a preparation because there was like an album coming, like it was known that it was coming. And yeah, because it was not long after that song that I would have either heard like the first single for this record or just the album itself.
Yeah. It's funny that you said this record came out in August, like August 19th or whatever, because we had probably heard it for 2 months prior.
Was this a leaked album?
This was leaked. I feel like it was pretty far, at least a month, but I feel like it was more than that. I felt like I listened to this record all that summer, but I could have just listened to it a ton in July. Yeah, it's funny to actually hear the release date, and I'm like, huh, that's not right. Oh, wait. Yeah, that's right, because we pirated it.
Yeah, everything kind of leaked back then. Yeah, because doesn't Civil War come out in 2008 too? And it like leaked like 2 months before the actual release. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like everything was leaking that way. It was a hot button issue. Yeah. So yeah, we probably got a leak early, and we're like, whoa. And it was one of those records that when it came out, it was immediately talked about by everyone. Like everyone was listening to it, at least in our group of people. And it was covered frequently in magazines, and like the hype around this record it happened right away. And it felt like it became like a legendary album almost immediately. Like it feels like it became important as soon as it came out.
Yeah, it felt very much like an instant classic, which is funny because they went from being a basement level band with like they were on XO Records, which is just like a friend put out their first record, basically.
And the Senor and the Queen came out on Sabo.
Yeah. But they got that Side One Dummy, and Side One Dummy just, I don't know, they just had just the right timing of marketing this record. I think the leak helped it too, because we heard it. I think most of the people that we knew heard it from the leak.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Because I remember talking to, Grant from Better Melody, like that summer before I went to college. I was like, yeah, been listening to that Gaslight Anthem record. Like, I just remember that being, it was a leak that everybody checked out. And I think that was a time period where I think leaks could be beneficial.
Yeah.
Because it was low stakes and everyone was just downloading everything all the time. And so enough people just kind of like took a chance on it. It was like, oh, that looks interesting. And everyone just kind of discovered it at the same time, and they didn't have to go out and buy it. They didn't have to trust that it was going to be good. They could just listen to it, and everybody heard it and they're like, whoa, this is great.
Yeah, it definitely became, instant classic is the word to use. It just out of nowhere, left field, just like, what's this band that some people had heard of, or it's just like everywhere now. Word of mouth probably definitely helped really boost this record. And probably by the time you're right though, I think this could have been one of those rare instances where like an album leaking months early wound up helping the actual like first day sales type stuff, just because like nobody knew who they were beforehand. So it would have just probably been like a blip, or it would have just taken longer to get that audience there. So in like 2008, I remember liking it then. I remember you really liking it. like they really collect with you. I think more so than with me. But for some reason, like when the American Slang came out, I was just like meh, and then like we're done with them after that. Like I didn't need them anymore. They had fulfilled my need already off of this record, and so I eventually got to the point where I'm like, yeah, that record's good, but I never want to listen to it. Like it's not a record that like I come back to. Maybe that's partly because they're your band so much that I'm just like, yeah, they're his band. They're fine. I don't mind. I don't know exactly what that is, but like, yeah, it's not one that I came back to a lot. But every time I would come back to it, I'm like, yeah, these songs are pretty good. I don't know why I don't put this on more than I do.
Yeah, and it wasn't. I know this band clicked. This band clicked with me pretty immediately, but it wasn't like first listen I was like, wow, this is amazing. It was definitely a gradual, just like repeat exposure. But that was that. I mean, I guess we still had enough of that mentality of like we had bought the CD, because usually like, you know, up to this point, up to the downloading era of music discovery for us, it was always like you buy a CD and with the money that you had, and that's what you had, and you had to listen to it, and you made yourself like stuff, you know, you got to know stuff that really, really well, really fast. And I think that kind of listening habit was still sticking to how we approached new music, where we would listen to something, you know, you would download some stuff all the time. We definitely were increasing the amount of stuff that we were checking out, and by, you know, downloading stuff off of message boards and blog spots and stuff. But there was still, oh, I liked that, I'm going to listen to it again pretty soon. That it wasn't like, I need something new, I need something different that I'm at now. You know, just a craven novelty experience junkie.
That is, I do feel like that's what I've turned into. Like as far as like new music is concerned, I'm like, new, find the new, look for the new. And then like I listen to it once and I'm like, best album of the year, and then like don't listen to it again for like 3 months. Like, how can you, what? I need to get into repeat listening habit again, which is very hard to do. I don't know if it's just because we have we're drunk on options and we're just like, there's so much to choose from. We've got this Cheesecake Factory menu of impossible as many ideas to listen to.
Cheesecake Factory. I love a good Cheesecake Factory joke.
But like you just have
the tome that the menu is.
You have so much to choose from, and it's like, I don't know what to go for. Like, well, I guess I should go for the new. Why is that the emotional response of like, I should try something new? Is it because of like there's so much out there and like I feel like I need to hear as much of it as I possibly can? I don't know. Fear of missing out on like, a great record that I don't know.
Well, and you feel your age more, like, too, I guess. You're like, I only got so many more decades to live. I need to hear everything I can possibly be interested in. But also, I don't know. I think the more stuff I listen to, the more I expand my musical taste, the more I'm like, well, I want to hear more different stuff because I've taken chances on different things and really enjoyed them.
Yeah. So,
like, I want to do that more. Which kind of interestingly, inversely to that, I was thinking about this week because I didn't talk about this on the I'm Listening, so this is a bonus, but I was listening to the first Modest Mouse record yesterday, and I was like, I've said in the past, I'm glad I had a Modest Mouse phase because I can appreciate what other people love about them, but like I don't really need to listen to them anymore. And I was listening to that record, which I had previously, would have thought was a good record, something that I really enjoyed. And I'm like, I'm getting bored, man. I don't want to keep listening to this. And the more I'm realizing, like, it's like the more chances I take and am rewarded with something that I enjoy on different things that I missed out on because of whatever, the less interested I am to revisit something that, like, I feel like I probably wrung the most I'm going to get out of it. The less I feel the need to be like, oh, well, everyone loves this. Maybe I should try it again because it didn't stick before, but maybe it'll stick this time. I'm like, I think I can trust my own taste enough now at this point to be like, I can give myself a very long time to revisit something. But yeah, but getting into 59 Sound when it came out, like, it was just I think it just got kind of passively absorbed through being like, well, let's throw that 59 sound record back on. That was a good one. I enjoyed it.
Let's throw that 59 sound back on.
It was just a safe bet to hear something that you wanted to listen to that you would enjoy, especially if it was like, all right, we're driving home from Hickory. It's like, we know exactly, we have enough time to listen to like one record.
Yeah.
But I remember hearing this record a fair bit in your car. That's
Really?
mostly where I associate it. At least once there's like one distinct listen, of leaving Hickory and driving home and listening to this record. That's probably where it was like really clicking for me, to where it would be something that I would reach for.
My most distinct listening to this record is in front of my laptop. Like, that feels like so much of the music from this time period, I was like just sitting in front of my computer listening to.
Yeah. A lot of stuff for me too. It was me listening to, Between the Buried and Me and Genghis Tron records back to back. Fully burning myself out.
Yeah. Burning yourself out, which I guess that's the difference too. Like, now you're less likely to burn yourself out on something. I mean, I don't know, maybe. Depends on your personality. I guess you might. Some people are like, I listen to the same record every day until I'm tired of listening to it. Some people would still do that. Not me, though. Yeah,
I guess with this guy, with getting into the Gaslight Anthem record, and something that maybe helped it stick for me for a long time was that I didn't exhaustively listen to it. It was just kind of like threw it on a few times that summer, and then I just kind of like had it when I was in college. And it also helps that my wife got into them. Well, I got her into them.
Don't forget, I got you into this band.
But yeah, I sent her one of these songs over AIM pretty early into us dating, first talking, and she like really liked it. And I think I probably like copied the album over to her iTunes or whatever, put it on her iPod. So we really bonded over them, listening to them a lot.
And maybe that's part of why I also was like, that's their band now. That's why I was just like, they're fine. But give you a little background on the band. So originally started as This Charming Man, had quite a few member lineup changes until they finally landed on Brian Fallon, Benny Horowitz, Alex Levine, and guitarist Mike Volpe. They then decided the direction they were going sonically required a band change name, so then they became the Gaslight Anthem. And not long after that, Mike Volpe then left and was replaced by Alex Rosamilia. And this record follows their debut LP, Sink or Swim, which came out in 2007, as well as the Senor and the Queen EP in 2008. So just a few months earlier. Funny how different that EP and this LP sound, but despite the same calendar year. They wind up signing with Side One Dummy, who at this time was still very much the gimmick record label. And I pulled up their 2008 discography to see what else they had done that year. And they did Hello Destiny by Goldfinger. There's their ska band. They did the Revival Road 2008 with Chuck Reagan, Ben Nichols, and Tim Barry. Mm-hmm. That was fun. They did Zox, which I believe was the violin punk band.
Yeah.
They did the Briggs, which I guess would be just like a street punk band that they would have had at this time. And Reverend Peyton's Big Damn Band. All in 2008. Side One Dummy. And 59 Sound fits very much into a different gimmick. So I can see why Side One Dummy would have been like, we have to have this band that sounds like they're from the 50s and punk music from today. Like, just doing two things at once. They spent 5 weeks recording this record compared to the week that they had to record Sink or Swim. And the band really credits that as to like a lot of the unique sounds that they kind of came up with on this album. Just being able to have time in the studio and explore and do things. And yeah, it wound up being pretty much right away. I wouldn't say it was like a massive hit. It hit what was the number it hit on the Billboard? It was like 70. I think it peaked at number 70 on the Billboard 200. Now, part of that might have had to do with the fact that they performed with Bruce Springsteen. They like opened for him, and then at some show, he came out and sang 59 Sound with them, and then Brian goes out and sings during Bruce's set for a song.
Yeah.
They did that a couple times. I think Glastonbury was one of them.
Yeah.
And then their sales doubled for the record after that happened. So my guess is all those Springsteen fans were like, what's this? a young band who sounds like this
Yeah.
from Jersey.
Oh, I gotta have this.
Gotta have this. This is gonna be slapped right there between John Bon Jovi and the boss.
Yeah, they have credited a lot of their success to getting a big push in the UK too.
Oh, I bet the UK. Actually, now that I think about it, the UK loves a good 50s like throwback sound. Yeah.
The UK press pushed them a lot. They got good placement on festivals, and then the Springsteen stuff happened.
I guess because here in the States, they would have just been like with the other punks probably for pretty much all that time. I could see the UK being like a big reason why they got to that next level.
Yeah. Well, they had international success, on their second LP. I think that definitely is something that led to them getting major label, signing and getting really good tours. And because it's like, hey, look, we can go play in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
We can do well abroad. I think this record would have still had a pretty decent impact without having had that UK success early on. I think it still would have been felt pretty well, and I think they would have continued to have a decent career, and it may have still been courted by major labels at some point. Because I think with this record, they became very serious as a band and as musicians, and being able to work in the studio. I think it's really weird that this record has such a gimmick to it, and it's not annoying about it.
Yeah.
Because it very easily could have been that retro pop thing from this time period.
On the same label with Flogging Molly and Gogol Bordello. Like,
yeah.
And they got the Flogging Molly guy producing this record. It very easily could have been like, play it up some more. Like Joe Sib sings on this record. He runs Sidewind Dummy. You think he was in there being like, can we make this sound even more old fashioned? Like, I don't understand. I would like to interview those guys and be like, so what was the early years of Sidewind Dummy, and why were you so frequently putting out gimmick bands? But Gaslight might
sell. I don't know.
Yeah, they were live bands. They were all bands who had like good live shows, so maybe that was part of it. Because the Flogging Molly show was like considered amazing. Like going to see them live is supposed to be incredibly fun, and I imagine Gogol Bordello has the same thing going on, just like a huge party atmosphere. So yeah, I could see that. I could see just something to sell for the live show. But yeah, it feels gimmicky, but at the same time,
it works.
It works in a way. Yeah, you're right. That doesn't feel as cheesy. There's a little cheese. There's a little cheese on here, but it's not as
cheese. Yeah.
It's the same kind of cheese that is in a Bruce Springsteen, record.
Yeah.
It's the same kind of little bit silliness going on.
I just think it's so remarkable that they set out with such a very potentially overpoweringly corny production style and aesthetic. Like, I mean, and it's all the way through. It's just like the design, the jacket, like it's got the record noise on the first track. It's got, it's got a production style that it's not vintage production style, but it's taking cues from, heavy reverb and slapback tape echo and really clean guitars, at their most distorted, it's just kind of like a really tight low gain. And it's not, they're not playing through JCM 800s, they're playing through clean Fender amps, and the lyrics are all like throwbacky and like old 55 and Corner Boys and making references to Night Moves, and like it's just there's all these different like throwbacky things that I don't know if it's just it's just an aesthetic, I guess, that Brian was like living and breathing and like thoroughly invested in out of a genuine appreciation, and that he's not necessarily a costumey person. He doesn't take it so far as to be like a psychobilly. He's just like, yeah, this is like a natural progression of these, kinds of lyrics. And he's just so, I think maybe just so good at fundamentally understanding the topics that he's singing about, because he's using all of these 50s, 60s retro kind of settings as really just like kind of trappings and descriptions. But the lyrics are about, believable people and experiences and relationships. And there's something that is relatable and timeless, regardless of, lit a cigarette on a parking meter kind of lyrics.
Yeah, I think the timing was right as well. This is the time period where Bruce Springsteen is really getting reevaluated for like the next generation of listeners. Like he feels like he became a little bit more like a whole generation of like people were just getting into him for the first time. And it just so coincided with a band from New Jersey who is also very heavily influenced by Springsteen that it's just the right time. Because at the same time, was it the Hold Steady was also doing kind of like the same thing? They were also tapping into that Springsteen sound. Like it was in the zeitgeist that like, hey, this Springsteen guy's pretty cool. Like, and so then it was just everybody figuring it out and being like, well, how do we incorporate this into our music and what we do now? And we often like Gaslight Anthem is kind of like the ground zero for that, for the Heartland punk thing to really take off. But it was already happening in the greater zeitgeist. They were just the first ones in punk music to really like bring it in. That wasn't like Social Distortion, like 20 years earlier.
Yeah.
Speaking of the Springsteen thing, it's literally impossible to find a single review about this record that does not mention Springsteen.
Yeah, which they kind of freaked out about a little bit.
Yeah, they're like, oh fuck, what?
They're like, oh shit, we bruised too hard. Now no one can compare us to anything else. Which, because it's funny, because it's like, yes, there's definitely that very overt Springsteen influence on Brian, particularly.
Yeah,
but it's silly because like Alex's guitar lines they're Brit pop. He loves Oasis, and there's all kinds of like ride sounding single guitar lines and Smith's influences, and there's definitely like Lifetime influences and hot water music influences and Avail influences. There's so much more to it than just that. But yeah, if you're just like a rock critic and you're just like, oh, well, this sounds like Bruce Springsteen.
So that was going to be my thing. This kind of goes back to the My War thing where everybody says My War, everybody's influenced in copying My War, and I can't hear it. Now, I am the most casual Springsteen casual that could possibly be. I know the hits. Yeah. I've never listened to a single one of his albums from front to back unless like you were playing it in the car or something. I don't have anything against him. I just never got into him. Might explain why I never really got super in depth in the Gaslight Anthem. Maybe it's the same reason I don't get into Bruce that I don't get into Gaslight. But anyway, as the most casual Bruce listener there possibly could be, outside of the topics of the songs and like the visual look, this doesn't sound like Bruce Springsteen to me.
Yeah, I kind of thought the same thing then. Like when I was first seeing those references, and when I got into the Gaslight Anthem, I hadn't gotten into Bruce Springsteen, and I got into Bruce Springsteen mostly because of the Gaslight Anthem. And it was like a case of like, I showed them to Katie. She was like, oh, this reminds me of Bruce Springsteen, like a lot. And like, I've seen that comparison. I don't really know. I know Blinded by the Light and Born in the USA.
Yeah.
So it just kind of like casually started to get into his discography, and then eventually just like getting in a few records in, I'm like, oh, I love this. This is great. I'm gonna go as far as I can with this guy.
This Bruce guy is pretty great.
But I like, it's the jersey, it's the aesthetic.
Is that what it is? It's just like vibes, man. They're from Jersey. He's clearly lyrically influenced, visually influenced, sonically. I mean, later I guess it becomes a little more obvious sonically, but
yeah, this record, not. I don't know. I guess I can say if you knew Born to Run and you knew maybe like some of the deeper singles from. Because we grew up in a terrible market for Springsteen. You didn't hear Springsteen songs
because he was too union.
Yeah, he was too liberal. We just
grew
didn't.
Up,
it was always a soft market for him.
We're in Tom Petty country, is what we're in.
Which I hear plenty of Tom Petty.
I actually do hear lots of Tom Petty on this record.
Yeah,
which is
in the
funny.
Gaslight Anthem, all over their discography. I'm like, they sound more like Tom Petty actually to me. There's definitely something to the anthemic nature of it in conjunction with the image that lends itself Springsteen. And yeah, if you look at the most Ronettes pastiche Springsteen material, the most 50s, 60s girl group, Beach Boys kind of rockabilly influenced, Roy Orbison-y Springsteen stuff. Okay. But that's Bruce doing somebody else. So It's almost like people are just seeing Gaslight Anthem doing Bruce doing somebody else. But like also they are doing Otis Redding and Wilson Pickett and Roy Orbison pretty directly themselves too. So I don't know. It didn't. I think that the image and lyrics are the driving factor of the Springsteen comparisons.
I also think that the Jersey thing, I think for whatever reason, music writers can't think of anyone else from New Jersey other than Bruce Springsteen.
Well, yeah, nobody wants to be compared to Bon Jovi.
Yeah. And meanwhile, they're from New Brunswick, New Jersey. You know who else is from New Brunswick, New Jersey? Screaming Females. The Measure. The Ergs? Were they there too? Lifetime. This is a punk mecca. Like, this is like one of the most vibrant like punk scenes in the country. And I know Pitchfork doesn't give a shit about, Lifetime in 2008, but I think that's what made them really, like, them being a punk band from a punk scene is probably what made them that extra special, because I feel like the Hold Steady, like, that record was getting some of that Springsteen stuff, but that stuff I think dies away with them like immediately. Like that sound is not necessarily compared to the Hold Steady going forward.
Which also the Hold Steady, arranging wise, musically, like actually sounds more like Springsteen to me.
Yeah,
I hear, which he used keys and pianos and horns and stuff. Like he's leaned more into like the actual arrangements side of Springsteen, but that really is I'm usually not one to say that like arranging is songwriting, but it is a really big part of his songwriting, Springsteen's songwriting. Like it's something he thinks about when he was writing stuff, especially the stuff that's like the most exemplary, like Born to Run, like that kind of stuff. He's just thinking massive arrangements, and writing on the piano and using these really big chords. And that's the thing that I don't hear the suspension things that he does in the Gaslight Anthem nearly as much. I hear much more straightforward punk power chords.
And I think that like real big arrangements thing is more of like a time and place type thing. Like when Springsteen was coming out, there were lots of artists kind of like doing like really big arrangements, like Elton John and Billy Joel, like doing really big arrangements. So it's kind of a little bit more traditional to do that kind of thing, especially if you're like a big group like that or performer, which is one of those things that like that's what punk helped do, is kind of like level out the playing field to a point where it's like, oh, anybody can just like pick up some instruments and start playing. And meanwhile, before you were either like a virtuoso musician or like you just had like great production and like arrangements and stuff like that. So it was harder. It wasn't as easy to like break through as a musician. But also, he's the type of artist that if you strip it down to just its core, it still works. It's just like if you just give it to him an acoustic guitar, he can make it work because he's just that good of a songwriter. And just like with like Elton John and Billy Joel, he's just them and a piano, they can make it work, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know. So I wasn't sure if that was just my lack of like Springsteen like knowledge, or if you agreed that it's a little overplayed in the press, especially for this record.
Yeah, I think there's significant rhythmic differences and structural differences to the songwriting for me that I don't hear the overwhelming Springsteen similarities, though. Obviously it is Springsteen influence because they said it as much.
Yeah. This All Music review that I found is like really indicative of like what every single review was at the same time. So I was going to read that a little bit. So it says, if Fallon comes off as a youthful Springsteen wannabe on the 59 sound, he also happens to be pretty good at it. The force and sincerity of his songs roll over the occasional clunky spots, and the band brings this music across with a strength and urgency that suggests a Heartland rock version of Social Distortion. Social Distortion are Heartland rock punk band. With Alex Rosamilia's guitars and Benny Horowitz's drumming brimming with fire and energy, the Gaslight Anthem are far too good to be the new millennium's answer to John Cafferty and the Beaver Brown Band, but it's all but impossible to listen to the 59 sound without being aware of the band's key influence. Even if they never grow out of their Springsteen obsession, they're worth hearing, but it's hard not to hope they'll develop a stronger identity on their own with time.
And I think a lot of the other guys in the band were like, we don't even listen to
Right.
Bruce.
Because like I read that too. They were like, none of them would listen to Springsteen before they started playing with Brian. So like Bruce was not an influence on them.
And Brian even is like mostly just the first 3 records. Like that's the biggest, and that's where there's the most similarity in his voice, is younger, thinner, scrappier Bruce voice before he got into doing trying to do a Roy Orbison impression. They got beat over the head with that comparison. It's such a got to be careful about how much you lean into your influences. It's tough to be compared to someone like that your entire career. But it also made them fans, so it was kind of a double-edged sword. Yeah. It couldn't be too mad that you want Springsteen fans.
Yeah,
they're very loyal.
Yeah.
This I don't know where I was gonna go.
Yeah, I think Social Distortion are really good comparison for what they're doing, because it is a very similar type, like taking like Heartland rock, Americana type stuff, and then melding it with punk music. And the punk is a little bit more overt with Social Distortion, but not drastically. Like Ball and Chain, and they're doing Johnny Cash covers. Like they very much were also. I wonder if they got a lot of that same kind of thing, where they were just like, maybe because they don't sound like one specific artist, maybe they didn't get it nearly as bad.
Yeah,
but I don't know. I think Social Distortion is a good like comp for the type of band they are, what type of scene they come out of, and their influences being included in their sound. That being said, yes, this record really kicks off like punks into Heartland punk, like that. It becomes like a very big thing.
Yeah.
After this record comes out,
we get a Polar Bear Club record. Well, same year, but yeah, Polar Bear Club gets more attention. Menzingers. Yeah. Fake Problems.
Yeah, fake Problems. The just Gaslight clones. But then people like Timeshares kind of shift their sound. It takes them a minute. They were still doing the Long Island punk thing. I mean, even the band whose name shall not be spoken. It's so funny that band has been like, oh, we don't talk about them anymore. Yet people will be like, I still like Brand New. Like, what? Weird. Because like, as far as we know, what he did wasn't even nearly as bad as what some of these other guys have done. But he's just like a huge asshole, But anyway, and them too, owing a lot to the Gaslight Anthem and the 59 sound specifically.
And we also get Japandroids.
Is Japandroids also 59 Sound's fault? When does the first?
it follows. Yeah. I think that was 2009, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Japandroids are Canadian Springsteen. So
I was trying to pull up some more, like, who are some other, like, Heartland punks?
Well, Lucero goes in their, in their Stax direction, and
Yeah. Against Me does a little bit, too, around this time. The post-New Wave Against Me stuff. People are citing Cold Years. Hot Water Music, too, a little bit. Exister kind of fits in there. But Chuck was already going that direction anyway.
yeah, I mean, his solo stuff was going that way. I mean, and honestly, there's plenty of stuff on the 59 sound that sounds like stuff from Caution.
Yeah, and also there's no, like, it's not a surprise that Chris Wallard has backing vocals on this record.
Yeah. Where
Where is he? I couldn't figure where he is. I could hear Dickie very clearly from my boss. I was like, oh, there's Dickie. But where's Chris? I couldn't quite figure out where he is on the record. Is it the same song? Because if that's the case, then why even have two people if you're gonna have?
They don't say specifically which songs have the backing vocals.
No.
Yeah, you just have, because Joe Sipp's on there too. Yeah, there's no one singing anything close to a lead vocal part other than Brian. So it's all just kind of background. Whoa, kind of.
I read a review that was like, and Chris Wallard appearing prominently on the Patient Ferris wheel, and I'm like, that's Dickie Barrett. That's not Chris Wallard. I mean, maybe Chris is back there too, but Dickie Barrett is the very obvious. Like, to me, that was that person writing that review did not know what Chris Wallard sounds like. Is what that means to me. Yeah, I feel like a lot of the reviews that happened around this time were like, none of them got it really. They were just hung up on the Springsteen comparison, and so like they kind of missed like everything else that was happening on this record. Because there's like some stuff in here where I was like, that's kind of like emo-y. Which song am I specifically thinking of? Hi Lonesome has like a kind of like a emo-y riff kind of going on in the verses there, which would make sense because they're, the scene that they're in is not, doesn't all sound like them. So they're being influenced by other stuff as well. So revisiting it had been a while since I'd actually listened to it, and I listened to it twice this week in preparation. And the first time I listened to it, I was like, why don't I listen to this more often? Like, the first handful of tracks like really hooked me right away, enough to carry me through the whole rest of the record. But when I went back to listen to it the second time to like kind of make my notes, trying to make my notes as I listen, I feel like the back half kind of fell off for me. Like it didn't work as much on repeat listen to me as the opening does. The opening starts like the first two songs being Great Expectations and the 59 sound, like just they hit right away. Like I love those songs. They're excellent songs, easily some of the best singles. It was like the 2 of the 3 singles for this record. And then they do my least favorite thing. They put the slow song third, Old White Lincoln.
That's not that slow.
Yeah, I mean, the chorus is faster, but yeah, it's like a little softer. Maybe it's not slower, but it's softer. I guess that's how I would describe it. And then High Lonesome's pretty good. And then I hit Film Noir, which is a slower song, and I lose a little bit. Film Noir and Miles Davis and The Cool, I don't know. I didn't really connect with those as much. They just feel a little too slow for me. I'm more back in for the Patient Ferris Wheel and Casanova Baby, but then I don't know. I fall off again. We get to Even Cowgirls Get the Blues. Like it didn't hold up to me as much upon second listen as like the first listen did, and maybe that's why this is one of those records that I phased out and then like didn't come back to as much because it didn't hold me all the way through as much. It starts off strong, like really grabs me right away, but like I lose interest in the record about the halfway point. I mean, I know obviously this is like one of your all-time favorite records, so like.
Well, no, I mean, and I understand why though. Like I can see those, like the songs that you mentioned are all the ones that I would be like, yeah, those are the ones where they're reaching beyond punk and they're trying to do the different things that they want to do, and they're leaning a little more heavily into like the soul pastiche kind of influences and things that Brian would just constantly come back to and try to get in there. And even Cowgirls Get the Blues with the big bluesy guitar riff, and they're reaching more for their other influences. I mean, their soul influences, their Counting Crows influences, those songs are being the ones that are like much more something else than they're more the other things that they're influenced by than they are the punk version of those things that the record is generally thought of as a whole. I really appreciate them. I really like that there's a variety of tempos and dynamics and rhythm to it. Like those songs work for me. I think that they do them well. I think they do those other sounds well, especially here. They do attempt to try other things on other records that don't work as well for me. Get Hurt, most notoriously being the record where they're like, let's completely fuck up our sound. I mean, that's probably too harsh. There's plenty of good songs on that record, but just, definitely trying to reach much harder for something else and not landing. I think that a lot of what they're trying to do that's different here is helped by the uniformity of the production, because they very easily could have done those songs like A Film Noir or Miles Davis and the Cool or even Cowgirls Get the Blues. They could have done those songs and those could have been the only ones that have the retro production. But they go with all the fast New Jersey punk, Latterman-ish kind of punk songs with that production too. So you get that overall sound of the record that I think for me early on made the material that was not really punk easier for me to get really into, and then just like really get attached to the lyrics and the arrangement and the mood of those songs and how they affect the record overall.
That's actually a really good point that you just brought up. By choosing the production style that they did for this record and like deciding to give Brian that reverb on his voice for every song on the album, binds the record together in a way that really makes it work as one big piece of music. Because we've listened to records and talked about albums on here that like a band would do a song like Film Noir or even Cowgirls Get the Blues, and it's the only song like that on a record, and it stinks. It's just like, oh, look what you're doing here. You're doing a gimmicky song, like just randomly thrown into a record that, because we've done multiple albums where like, you didn't need that, like we're cutting that if we get the choice,
Yeah.
But with this, I'm not like, even though those are like my least favorite songs on there, I still give those tracks like a 3.5 out of 5.
Yeah.
So that they're still good songs. It's just not the kind of song I typically want to hear. And that's just my own personal tastes and what I want to hear. Placement too. They put all the slow songs in the same spots that everyone puts all the slow songs. So that's why I think I was like, you put it track 3 and track 5 and tracks like 8 or something, 7 or 8, something like that.
9.
You put them in all the wrong place. You put them in all the same places everyone puts them all. So they always hit me. Yeah. In that same like, blah. Maybe if you just like reordered it slightly, I wouldn't have felt that. But it's more traditional sequencing, I guess. There's a reason why that sequencing pattern is so common, and
it works for most people.
It does. And for like, I'm the kind of person who's like, sub 30-minute records, yes please, give me more of those instead of like a 40-minute record, which is most records. Most records are 40 minutes. Like that's on average. Like most bands write 40-minute albums, and that's the kind of record that you do put those like varying the speeds and tempos of the songs. Meanwhile, I'm like, go as fast as you can. We're going to get this record over with in 25 minutes if I can help it, like
the sequencing works. I mean, the sequencing works for me just out of pure familiarity more than anything. And I don't think there's really any changing of the order of the songs that would make it better to me at this point. Cause I've just, I'm fully bought into it. And like when I think of like all time favorite records, this was pretty far up there. Like I was looking at my Last FM listens and I'm like, I have it in my head that I probably have listened to this record at least once every year since I first heard it. And that's mostly true. There's maybe a couple years where I didn't listen to the whole album, but I heard most of it. At least I have plays from it. That's not even counting the possibility that I, played the record and didn't scrabble it, manually.
Yeah.
That's only something I've started doing in recent years. So there's possible misses there. Or just like my Last FM got disconnected from my Spotify or whatever. I didn't have a reliable way to use Last FM for a little while. But so it's It's definitely a very high-ranking record, a record I've heard so many times, and I really don't get tired of it. Like it still works, and it is still like, I mean, it's still a significant reference for me in songwriting, in like production. Like there's lots of stuff on this record that I'm like, I love the clean guitars. Like I love the clean guitars. Like it's such a tight but still driving, and you get a little jangle, and you get like, it's just an absolutely perfectly dialed in, just a tiny bit of hair clean tone. Like, I mean, it's called the 59 sound because he was obsessed with the sound of a 59 Fender Bassman. Like that, like they named the song that and this record that because he was like, that's the sound. Like, and Brian, yeah, a lot of Brian's tone choices, guitar tone choices, and have been big references for me to look for. Like he's one of those, there's outlying things that I use that are not things that he's ever used. But when I look at like cleanness and really nice amount of compression and reverb and echo, and you know, I'm always interested to see Brian's pedal board. You know, he's one of those kinds of guitar players where it's like he's not super technical or showy or anything at all. He's a really great rhythm guitarist, which is kind of what he said, like, I don't need to be a lead guitarist. I don't need to be the best shredder. I just want to be the best rhythm guitarist I can possibly be. And he's just really tasteful about tone choices. Those are things that I'll look to his choices from time to time and be like, oh, that's an interesting pedal. It's maybe something like that. And there's lots of fun things on this record too with the production. It's like, not just do they have that reverby clean, you know, upfront compressed sound on everything. They do the fun little programmatic things where it's like a car door closes and an engine starts, and they do the record sound, and they do when they say Marley's chains we forged in life, you know that one of the Alexes is like playing chains. Like he's credited with playing chains and tubular bells and garbage cans, and like they did all of this fun these little background sounds that they kind of tucked in songs that like refer to the lyrics, and I like that stuff. I think it's fun. I think it adds a three-dimensional, you know, almost cinematic feeling to a record when it's done, especially like this. It is done really subtly. Yeah,
it's because it's not. Yeah, they're not super duper over the top. They feel like the car sounds feel like the way the Minutemen would use the car sound. You know, like it's just a little. It's just there. It's just there. It's a little cool thing that gives it some flavor. It is someone like, here, get in there. Get in there. Come on. You growl at me so much, and yet you depend on me to feed you so much baby food. They don't feel like, oh, we're listening to like a concept album now, you know? Which this very easily could have been a concept album, but they do a good job of not making it. That probably saves it from being like a pure gimmick band record by not going that hard into the like, oh, we're doing like Meatloaf stuff now, like because Meatloaf loves 50s rock too, you know.
It's I think of it as thematic, which again, a huge influence to me. Like I think about those things. Like if I want to make a record, I want to have a production style. Like I want to be able to set it in a time and place kind of thing, which definitely comes from Gaslight Anthem. It's informed a lot of the kind of writing that I do. Occasionally, at times, informed the not great habit of lyrical references, which Brian loves to do, and he does all over this record. There are so many lyrical references on this record to other songs. Maria came from Nashville with a suitcase in her hands. I kind of always sort of wished I looked like Elvis. I think is entirely a line from a Counting Crows song. Let me make sure that's actually the full round here. Maria came from Nashville with a suitcase in her hands. I'm not sure if the Elvis part is a reference. Oh, that's right. She said she'd like to meet a boy who looks like Elvis. So he's putting himself into that lyric and saying like, I kind of always wished I looked like Elvis so that I could meet a Maria.
Didn't
Like-
know that he was such a Crowhead there.
I think he's a pretty big Counting Crows fan. I don't know how deep he goes. That record would have come out when he was teenager, probably.
Yeah. Is that
But
the
there's
first one?
Yeah, I mean, there's tons of other overt lyrical references. Bob Seger, and like I think I've seen the lyrics of this record annotated before, where they're just like, "This is every single lyrical reference," and I'm like, "Holy shit!"
What did you write?
Can he do that? And he does a lot of like taking the line and like twisting it and making it more, subverting it and putting himself into it and making it a little more personal, or taking it somewhere else. And so it's an illusion and then building off of it, which I think is the right way to do it if you're going to do it. He does it a lot on this record. He doesn't do it nearly as much on other records. And I'm like, yeah, I wonder if they've ever gotten like, hey, you need to pay us for that line from anybody. And they're like, ooh, let's not do that so much. Or if it was just kind of like people didn't hear it. And then at a certain point, they're just like, oh, shit, I'm not going to do anything about this now. That was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
It's very grandfathered in. But yeah, that's something that I have taken from him and then had to like check myself and be like, whoa, I need to actually just write my own line there. Maybe you can still reference it some way. Like, what's a different way to say it that isn't just fully lifting the line? Or can I do a word association and find a different phrase altogether? But
Where does this land in the Gaslight Anthem discography for you? Because I went back and listened. I'm doing my new thing where I listen to the thing before and the thing after. So I listened to the Senor and the Queen, and then I listened to American Slang after this. And on Senor and the Queen, you can hear where they're going. Like, they haven't got there yet, but you can hear the direction they're going. That EP is probably very significant, more so than the LP before. That EP explains how they go from Sink or Swim to the 59 sound, because Sink or Swim feels very much like just like an Against Me style like punk record, like fairly straight ahead, New
heavy
Jersey
Clash influence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the EP is like, oh, okay, this is where we're starting to play around with some other sounds, and then we go whole hog on the 59 sound. And then American Slang was like it felt like a continuation of 59 sound. I enjoyed it kind of the same way. First half I thought was strong, second half kind of falls off. And I think that's just kind of where I land on them in general, I guess, at this point. But for you, where does this fit in?
Yeah, I think most of their records kind of have similar sequencing and pacing. So I would not be surprised which I think for me, American Slang, the last half does fall off a little bit more for me. This is definitely best.
So this is okay.
I mean,
It's not best or favorite.
Well, I would say best, but I do love Handwritten. Like, I think Handwritten is really every bit as good as this record in terms of the songs themselves, but that record doesn't have that overriding like thematic production style aspect that makes the 59 sound so special. And I don't think that they should have done that, because I do like American Slang moves away from it a little bit. They're not as heavy on the clean guitars and reverb. Like lyrically and visually still fits in the same world, but they get away from the production a little bit. And I think that was the right choice. I don't think they would have, if they had kept going with the 50s punkabilly production thing, they would have sounded real hokey.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they do rightfully peel it back on the next record, and really the rest of their records aren't as heavy on it. They go in other directions. But yeah, 59 sound and Handwritten being really at the top, and I would just give 59 sound the extra, like, it has the production thing. It's, the first one I heard. It's like super nostalgic for me. It has that revelatory element to it. American Slang was very, not disappointing. It was mildly disappointing when it first came out and I first heard it. And probably like when I heard the first single from it.
I know so many people who were like in the same boat as me, who weren't the people who like went on to just be a fan of the band going forward, regardless of records. But American Slang was like the record that like people like me and like with the aforementioned Grant from Bitter Melody, like we were like, didn't like that, we're done with this band, and like never came back to them as being like a band that we consistently listened to. And it didn't hurt them because they wound up creating a much bigger audience anyway. going in that direction. But yeah, it is funny that American Slang is the record that like everybody was like 59 Sound rules, and then the next one comes out and all of us like bandwagoners were like, it's the same concept as bandwagoner, even though no one knew them before 59 Sound, but we're all just like, we don't like this, see ya, and just don't come back. Like,
yeah, American Slang, I've probably talked about this before, but like that is a 90s Ford Taurus CD player record to me. That is the sound of that record, because I heard that CD in my girlfriend's car, or my girlfriend at the time's car, for like a year straight. I mean, we just like, it was almost always in the CD player. Like, you know, it would rotate between that and maybe like an Avett Brothers record or something like that. And she had an iPod and we'd listen to that sometimes too. So it was just like sheer exposure to that record. And I liked it when I first heard it. It just didn't like it as much. It didn't hit as hard.
well, because at that point the magic is like the trick is over. Like you know how the illusion works. So now you're just like, all right, show me what you got song wise, you know.
Yeah. And I think that one is a little weaker on songs compared to the records on either side of it. But
and despite not being their sophomore record, it behaves like a sophomore slump because they had changed how they wrote songs with 59 Sound. So then they were like, all right, now how do we follow that up with another thing?
Yeah. How do we make sure all the punks write us off? Because that's what ended up happening. Because that's when he's like, Jawbreaker's overrated. I don't like their replacements. Everybody got mad at them.
It is very ironic that a guy in the Gaslight Anthem to be like, the replacements are overrated. What do you think you're doing?
Yeah.
Well, let's rate it. What would you give it? I'm gonna give it a 4 flat, 4.0.
I mean, it's a 5-star for me.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. It's funny, like I talk about it like I don't like it, and I had this sensation listening to it. I'm like, why do I always think I don't like this record? And I do like this record. I gave it 4 stars. It is a great record. Why do I think I don't like it? Is it because I just don't listen to them? Is it because I don't have that urge to listen to the record? And so therefore no urge means no like? I don't know. I don't know what that is. There's a few other albums and bands that are like that too, where like I always like it when I listen, but then I think I don't like them. I don't know. Yeah. Strange. All right. Well, I think that will do it for us. So thank you all so much for listening. You can follow us on all forms of social media at punklautopod, punklautopod@gmail.com, and our voicemail line 202-688-PUNK. Please feel free to leave us a rating on your podcasting app of choice. And I think that'll do it. So thank you all so much, and we will talk to you later.
To order Punk, call the number on your screen. Rush delivery is available. Remember, this special offer is not sold in stores.